Um, as you see, Mad Hatter is not here yet. I mean, AJ already knows how it's going, how it's working over here. But Jake, it's the first time I have the pleasure speaking with you. Welcome to the Pillars.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. Great to be here.
So usually we just wait a couple minutes to let people get settled in the audience and of course on the stage. And I'm gonna do a small intro, and then Mad Hatter is gonna take over from there and gonna grill you a bit.
Sounds great, man. I heard we had some tough questions. No softballs here.
Yes, I love it. We like it.
This one was like, especially in the research phase. This was an interesting thing because we were like, how can we make it not so much about L1X in a way, right? Because a lot revolves around L1X, obviously. So we're thinking, how can we pinpoint it to L1Dex? So it was an interesting approach for this one, the research phase for us.
Brilliant, man.
In the meantime, I want to say to the audience, welcome. Thank you all for showing up. I just wanted to give a quick, wanted to quickly say that we have a $50 giveaway happening at some point that we're going to announce. And of course, every questions that you have in the community questions channel right above the Pillars hot seat. Please ask away, don't shy away, ask anything. Yeah, just enjoy. We hope that we also have some good questions for you guys lined up. And yeah, I think we should get it started, Mad Hatter, right? Are you good to go?
Yes, sir.
Are you settled?
I'm settled. I'm sat. I'm waiting. Let's go.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you all for coming today. Welcome to the Pillars. We are a community-led space aimed at supporting protocols and educating our investors through intelligent, meaningful conversation. Here we ask the tough questions you all want answered. Now, let me introduce to you one person we already had plenty of times on our stage. The other one, it's the first time, but I'm also very, very excited to speak to him. On the one hand, we have AJ from EMP, from SparkSwap, and all of that. So welcome, AJ, to the stage. It's always great to have you here. Thank you for coming, and also thank you that you took time out of your day to speak with us.
Yes, brother. Thank you.
Then, of course, we have Jake from DEX Finance. As I said, it's the first time speaking to you, so welcome to you, Jake. These guys, Jake, DEX Finance specifically, and AJ with EMP, they have partnered up to create and work on something that we are talking here today about, and that's L1Dex. L1Dex, as you might know or might not know if you're not familiar with it yet to the community, is the native DEX for the L1X chain. I mean, I was reading a bit, I was trying to understand the white paper of L1X. I'm a technical noob, I would say, but watching all the videos and all the information around it, it's if L1X can deliver on what they're promising, this is going to be, I believe, something that is a complete game changer. And of course, to support that is the native DEX, L1Dex. And as a quick summary or a quick thing, what is so interesting about L1X is the interoperability, the possibility for all the different chains. I believe they're starting off with 8 chains to communicate with each other, under each other through L1X, which allows L1Dex for cross-chain swapping without having the need to bridge and all sorts of that. But I don't want to get into deep. Mad Hatter's going to take it from here. I hope everyone enjoyed. Please use the community questions to ask your questions.
Thank you very much, David. Gentlemen, pleasure to have you in. AJ, thank you so much for coming back. I always look forward to speaking with you.
Same here, Mad Hatter. Always a pleasure, brother. And shout out to your entire community. We love the pillars, and we've had a ton of relationship over the years. So yeah, man, happy to dive in.
Yeah, thank you very much. Jake, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. Heard a lot of good things.
Thank you very much. Well, I've heard a lot of good things about L1Dex, L1X, and I echo what David said at the beginning. I was doing some research on you guys, and my goodness, it's extensive. There's a lot to it. It's both fascinating and intimidating in equal measure. What I find really interesting, however, is the approach that you guys are taking, especially when you're speaking about the setup of what you guys do. That Jake, I believe you're the one that created it, and AJ, for the most part, you're doing the front end with LA. And while I was listening to one of your previous AMAs, you said something that kind of sat with me and was very interesting, that calmed my nerves for this particular CEE, which was invest in a team and not a project. So first and foremost, what I appreciate from that is that you guys are putting yourselves, the team, at the forefront of what it is that you're doing, and have enough confidence in yourselves to say, we're the right team to build out something like this. And I just want to give a very quick shout out to LA, because I see her in all of the Discords. She's always on point. She's always on time. She manages to get announcements out. I don't know where you found her, but never let go of her, because she's fantastic at what she does.
100%. Sorry, I was muted. That was not a very good endorsement. No, I really love LA. She's been amazing. One thing too, real quick about LA, she was actually a community member. So it just goes to show that if you take initiative and support the projects that you are excited about, there is amazing opportunity for each and every one of you. So yeah, we could not do it without her. Absolutely.
Right, great, thank you. Yeah, well said. So what I'm going to really enjoy about this particular conversation is that I'm going to be able to jump between the technicals and the marketing aspect and the front end of how you guys deliver the information between the pair of you, because those are the expertise that you're bringing to the table. Before I do that, can both of you kind of give me an overview, a bird's eye view of what it is L1Dex is, but most importantly, what it is that you're promising that everybody should be excited about?
Yeah, 100%. So I'll kick things off again. LA and I handle a lot more of the community management end, and Jake is a lot more, again, hands-on building all of this out. So the more technical questions will definitely divert to him. But yes, we have assembled what we feel is the dream team. And I know that you mentioned a little bit earlier about how we can really focus on the decks and not really L1X, but the reality is that they go hand in hand, and we've also had an amazing relationship with the L1X Foundation, and because we are not only the premier DEX, but really the first project launching on the L1X chain, we have had to work with them on all the technical aspects and everything it takes, to get a blockchain live. So I just want to start with that. How the DEX itself works, I'll definitely defer to Jake here for a quick overview. So go ahead, Jake. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the premise of this, and even as AJ mentioned, that it does go hand in hand with the technology of L1X. It's almost something from the future. Honestly, I was skeptical myself. When I heard about it, it was enough for me to ape in with some personal funds, just because I wanted to be part of it if it was real. But then getting to dive in and actually get under the hood and work with it, it's really just this amazing thing that allows this communication between blockchains, right? And the possibilities of what this can do is just like so much bigger than any exchange out there, right? Decentralized, centralized, whatever. It really works. And so when we started thinking about how do we we have this contract to be the premier DEX, right? But so what does that involve, right? There's a number of hot items, always, right? Like, do we do the, the solidly V33 stuff? Do we want to go more balancer, concentrated liquidity? It's just a plethora of ideas. And even just operationally, like, is the goal to just get as much liquidity on and just try to smash as much volume and get as much money, as we can. And that all I'm glad to, happy to say that, the ultimate result was none of that. Actually, it was how do we get this seen by the most amount of people, to get people using it, not just to rake the cash in, right, but to kind of change the DeFi landscape. So, everything that we've done, all aspects that we'll go into, in depth, have been designed, not to be internally used and not to just stay with us and try to protect everything internally, but like to be shared with everybody, so that other exchanges, other, partners, projects, everyone can essentially tap into what we're building, use that same technology, share liquidity, and all participate, for the greater good of everybody.
Right. Great. Thank you. Yeah, I look forward to getting into this. And I suppose for you, AJ, one of the biggest challenges is also going to be, I mean, we saw people kind of mention it in the chat a little bit earlier, and everywhere I've gone and heard anybody discuss L1Dex and L1X, and I know you're not the same, and this is focusing on L1Dex, is just how information dense it can be, how perhaps difficult it can be to absorb during a single conversation. And I imagine one of the biggest challenges, but also one of the most exciting things to have to tackle, is how you translate that information to manageable bite-sized chunks to the people that are listening and the people that you're targeting.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. And again, to piggyback on what Jake said, this is revolutionary tech that the entire crypto space has been wanting, and nobody has been able to truly deliver. So I think that we get to a point where, actions speak louder than words, where once people are able to see how the chain functions and how the DEX functions, that is going to take a lot of the technical explanation that we have to kind of provide to maybe somebody that isn't a crypto veteran or a daily crypto user. Having a working product, that it speaks for itself, and that's why we get so bullish too on potential adoption of not only L1X but our DEX, is because we are just literally a better solution. We're faster, we're safer, and we're cheaper than literally all other pseudo bridging options or swapping technology, in just a much better package. So I think all that plays into it. And we've done a lot even with EMP, our original project, in terms of education. So we absolutely will roll out entire video courses or whatever sort of educational marketing that needs to happen to really get people on board.
Great. You beat me to the punch. That was one of the questions that I had slightly further down the line.
Amazing. Yes,
In
brother.
terms of how you're going
Yes.
to, in terms of how you're going to educate people. Okay, so as you're giving me the bird's eye overview, Jake, of how this works, my first question before that happens is, what part of what you were reading with L1X awoke your senses, and what was your first thought when you were mulling through the idea of a DEX?
It's funny you mentioned, just being able to take in so much information. Honestly, like, no joke, it was the same for me. I mean, I've been at this for like 6, 7, 8 months now, and like, there's still things that we come up with that are like, oh my god, we can actually do this too. Just a lot of aha type moments. But the overall appeal is obviously this cross-chain communication. Low hanging fruit, like a decentralized bridge to Solana, is obviously enormous, right? Because the only way you can do it is off chain. Things like that. When we first came up with this multi-chain, multi cross-chain balancer pool, that was another really great one that, like, hey, we don't need to have millions and millions and millions of dollars of liquidity for every single token. We can just have like one big pool with all the L1s to get the same job done. Right. And even just recently, we've come up with we're calling it consolidated liquidity, which essentially allows any partner that may have their liquidity spread out between multiple chains to just consolidate that all on one chain. And therefore, rather than having, $1 million here, $1 million here, they can offer their entire, cumulative liquidity to all the corresponding, all the chains that we're, compatible with.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. So let's get into it. Tell me how it works. And please remember that I'm not very bright. So explain it to me like I am a 10-year-old.
That actually came up recently, and I think we finally found a pretty good way to explain this.
Okay.
Without any technicals, right? If you're familiar with like any of the aggregators, right? 1inch is popular. Firebirding, right? Essentially, it's like a cross-chain 1inch, right? So you'll be able to go on and aggregate, but through any chain in a seamless transaction, right? Which obviously before this just was not possible because you can't buy a token on Solana that you're purchasing with ETH or any other chain.
Right.
The real bird's eye view is really just accessibility through cross-chain aggregation.
Yeah.
Okay. And
oh, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
go
no,
on. Sorry,
Matt. I
AJ.
just wanted to add a little bit, and again, this may do some crossover with a future question, but again, I think that there's a little bit of a misconception on native assets. So this is really important because typically they have a collateralized version of a lot of blue chip assets are available on, say, Ethereum or Binance BNB chain. But when you're transacting in those collateralized tokens, they are not actually the native token from those chains. So you have to trust that the liquidity provider has the actual native asset to back up those funds. So with us, you're able to transact native to native. So again, it's a wrapped version. That's how all tokens work in AMMs. They have to be wrapped. But by doing that, you're getting actual Ethereum and actual BNB in a cross-chain swap, which again, that is revolutionary, and it really reduces the third-party risk of relying on people actually having the tokens that they say they do. So this is really fundamentally important.
Yeah, one of the big things that you guys are able to boast is that you're reducing. Obviously, we know that bridging is one of the most sought after ways hackers can try and target you, and that you're able to reduce that risk by a significant margin. Have you guys crunched the numbers and figured out a ballpark figure by which you think you're going to be able to reduce any risk?
I mean, yeah, so I'll
Percentage
let
wise?
Jake follow up too, but I mean, last year alone, there was $3 billion that was hacked through bridges. And, that was just a fraction of the overall volume that went through those bridges. So, again, from a percentage basis, that's probably a little hard to answer. But, I say not if, but when we can show that this is a better solution and reduces again that potential attack vector, I think that we could literally expel any potential hacking risk of traditional bridges moving forward. But yeah, go ahead, Jake. I'm sure you have an answer as well.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I mean, it's not not even a question that $3.5 billion figure is by far the biggest attack vector in crypto. And I can tell you why. For those of you that aren't familiar with the bridging process, right? What happens is there's essentially liquidity on two different chains, whether that's LPs or a vault system. And what you do is you're depositing token A on chain A. You put your token in, and you're given a receipt back for that. And then your token kind of goes off chain through the ether and has to be claimed on chain B, on the destination chain. And in more than 95% of cases, out of that $3.5 billion hack figure, it's because in that process there are ways to manipulate, with flash loans and things like this, the number of receipts that are going from one chain to the other, right? The other 5% is like somebody like the wormhole bridge. Somebody commented their private key in the GitHub repo or something stupid like that.
Right.
But most 95% of the time it's because there's a problem with the contracts. They deploy a new token or something like that, and someone found a vulnerability to basically mint more receipt tokens than they would have, than they had originally. And in our case, none of that's even on the table. It's literally as safe as creating, making a trade on Uniswap from ETH to USDC. It all happens on chain. It's one transaction. It's blockchain. It's the same security as you find. That's why we're all here, right? So it's yeah.
So okay, let's kind of dig into and scratch away at the surface of how that all works, like the technicalities between what it is that you're doing, how things are communicating with one another that allows you to do this in a single transaction. And I want the audience also to be mindful of the fact that it's not by mistake but by design that, of course, L1Dex is saying they want to be the centralized exchange for DeFi. And one of the most important components here, and I'm sure you're going to mention it, is that you retain custody of your crypto. So your tokens are yours. You're not giving custody over to anybody else. You're retaining it, which is in of itself, an incredibly secure way of doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is decentralized. Like I mentioned, it's all on chain. There's even a wallet as well that it comes with additional security features that you won't find in things like MetaMask and Rabby. But in general, the tech itself is really unique, right? It's actually built on Rust, which is not your typical that's like a Solana based framework, which allows it to have more flexibility. And then we actually use SDKs in order to make that conversion. But essentially, what happens is there's a layer in between that allows for the transfer of information, right? In a typical setting, right, like Ethereum is not going to be the same as Smart Chain, right? They're both EMV chains, but they use different methods of talking to one another. And in this case, similar to when a bridge happens, right, there is this communication where there's enough validations that make it happen, right? That say, okay, let's process this trade. But what L1X has done is figured out this kind of intermediary step to all happen on the same chain that basically converts that data into a single language that both chains can understand, and basically those validations happen all in a single transaction as opposed to separate transactions on multiple chains.
Right. Great.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more quick point on that. I think a great analogy is, pretend that every blockchain is its own language. Again, in the real world, unless you know how to speak Spanish, then you don't understand what's happening. Well, L1X is essentially now the global translator that allows all the chains to communicate with each other in terms of both tokens, logic, NFTs, all of the above. So that is, again, a very simple way of trying to understand, how the process is happening. And we're also able to facilitate this through the balancer pool. Again, having a giant, basket, for lack of a better word, of all these tokens from all the chains that we are interoperable with. That is how, again, it takes a lot of the steps out of the process that you see in traditional bridging, because all those assets are already ready to
One of the
roll
things
at our
that
disposal.
no one ever wants to talk about are, especially when they're talking about their own project, are the risks. And in terms of what you've built out, we know the risks that you're mitigating against. Does it bring any additional risks that you guys didn't foresee but were fascinated by and needed to plug and wanted to plug? Are there any other risks that you guys have noticed and are actively working towards? Because I know you're not fully launching yet. That comes at the end of the year. So you're giving yourself ample time to start working through these problems. I'm just curious to know if you've identified, and naturally you're not going to go into too much detail, but if you've identified some things that have perhaps surprised you and what you're going to do to really mitigate against those.
Yeah, so again, I'll let Jake follow up after me, but I mean, really, I think it boils down to the way L1X has decided to roll out their launch. And, it's important that we also set an expectation in this AMA as well as we have in all of our AMAs. The chain itself is set to go live at the end of the month. That's, 1 or 2 days, depending on where you are in the world. But we will have this sort of grace period while the Genesis block is minted. We have to deploy a lot of things from our side. Again, being essentially the first project on the chain, there is a lot that goes into that. So again, I just want to make sure everybody knows that we will have an MVP or a minimal viable product where we can prove everything is working and we can demonstrate the power. But over time, we integrate more and more. And the reason this relates to your question, Mad Hatter, is that gives us a lot of time to mitigate any potential risk. So as we're rolling out, if we do see some issues, we're able to kind of get in front of those without it being completely protocol breaking, because there is this staged rollout, so to speak. So, I mean, and to answer specifically, and Jake can probably answer better on this, but no, I mean, I don't think we've run into any potential bugs so far. And we're working hand in hand with the L1X Foundation, and they know their code better than anybody because they built it, obviously. So they're handling a lot of the true technical side.
Thank you, Eddie.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Jake.
I'll follow up quickly. Yeah, I mean, honestly, we have, our team is about 25 plus senior developers. We have PhDs in mathematics. We've all been going over it with a fine tooth comb, and really haven't seen anything, outside of small bugs. But like I mentioned earlier, the way that it operates very similar to just any regular transaction on the blockchain, which is super secure outside of human error. So everything's been really great so far. We're obviously taking precautionary steps to go get the official stamps from Certec and a few others, the peer reviews and crowdsourcing, white hat, bug bounty programs and all that. So
Right.
security is obviously a top priority for us, but so far so good.
Thank you. Before I go on to my next question, obviously about L1Dex, Jake, what is your favorite aspect of this? I'm curious to know if there's something that you really dial into and get excited about that maybe no one else is either going to know about or get excited about, but you personally really enjoy it.
That's a good question. Honestly, I alluded to it earlier, but the consolidated liquidity is actually really just kind of mind-bending stuff.
Right.
Personally, a lot of even before this whole thing started taking shape, a lot of the tools that we've tried to build are in order to help investors, whether they're advanced or novice, to kind of understand the space and perform better, make money. And one of the biggest problems, and like not just in the DeFi space, but like people. I come from a traditional finance background. I was a pit trader for 13 years, and the one major complaint that traditional finance guys still have about crypto as a whole is the liquidity concerns, that the market cap doesn't actually support what's behind it, right? And we all know, anybody who's been in a project that's starting up, liquidity is such a big thing. The dexes, these exchanges that are like, they're popping up like every week there's a new exchange out, and they get a big run in the beginning, 5, 10 million TVL, and like 2 weeks later there's nothing, right? Because people just hop in for the rewards and they're out, right? But that hurts everybody, right? Because it's just a couple people at the top that are sucking money off, while people that are trying to just pick one exchange and trade it, they're getting whacked on price impact and everything else. So this idea of having the shared liquidity that anybody can tap into, is really just such a powerful tool that it gets me pretty excited.
Let's segue into the shared liquidity. And AJ, from a marketing standpoint, what's your angle? What is the way that you want to approach speaking to DEX's projects that perhaps want to come in and build with you guys? What is one of the main things that you're telling them privately, not for us listening here, that they should be most bullish on, and this is the reason why they should build with you?
Yeah, brother. Again, another killer question. So yeah, I mean, we this is what we're doing right now. On top of everything else we have going on, we're spending hours a day outreaching to all the mid and high level dexes and even potential protocols on literally every chain that we're interoperable with. So we definitely have our hands full. And with that, though, the main messaging, especially in terms of marketing and onboarding, is we are a non-competitive solution. So that is super, super different. Again, we're not trying to steal, liquidity and users and market share away from these dexes. We are trying to unite the dexes, and this again is fundamentally different. Even in traditional business, everybody is in it for themselves. They see others as competition. We don't have that mindset, and it's really a beautiful parallel, because what we're able to do is implement the SDKs. Again, that stands for Standard Developer Kits. Those Standard Developer Kits are essentially a plug and play solution where it doesn't require a lot of programming. We do all the work for them essentially, and then they plug in this bit of code that then allows us to tap into their liquidity, and they get rewarded for that. They get a share of the volume that they generate for the L1Dex. So again, I said earlier about users, that our technology sells itself. Well, this partner integration, it also sells itself, because there really is no reason that any other DEX, no matter what chain they're on, wouldn't want more volume, because again, DEXs thrive on the amount of volume that goes through them. So again, this has been the approach we've had, and we've had some amazing response. Again, the biggest hurdle for us right now is that a lot of people still think, which I fully get, that this is too good to be true, and so we really have to have the chain up and running, even though it's been proven in all of the test nets. Until we're actually live, we're able to get some really high quality audits under our belt. I think it will catch on like
Great, thank you.
wildfire.
And somebody described it almost like a plug and play, right? Which makes life incredibly easy for people. I always try and get a little bit of alpha out of you guys whenever you come in. So are there any partners that you're currently in advanced talks with to come onto L1Dex? Can you kind of let slip a half a name of whom you might be focusing on?
Yeah, I'll let Jay. I don't know. Go ahead, bro. I don't know if I want to spill the beans, but yeah,
Yeah, well,
Go ahead.
I don't know if we can technically let out a name any names yet, but I will say this, that we have talked to many potential partners that are super interested, and not only in just being a partner DEX and in everything we're talking about today, but a few larger names are even discussing how they can build different products, using the SDKs.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, you took the words out of my mouth, Jake. So one partner in particular, again, we can't really say because they're actually transitioning their own business model, which I don't think is public either. So again, I don't want to put that out there, but they're very interested in building, on top of our engineering layer, which we can talk about too. We have an entire engineering layer on
Hmm.
top of the DEX. So and yeah, they again, we've been getting a ton of great feedback, but as you know, in the crypto space, a lot of these projects are approached by 100 people a day, and 99% of them are scams. So we still have to kind of get our street cred, so to speak, with all of them. But we're definitely making headway for sure.
Great. Well, thank you, and talk to me about that engineering layer.
Yeah, totally. So, the brief overview, and then again, Jake can go into the technicals. So we have an entire layer on top of the DEX that will allow people to build applications that directly tie into our liquidity. So again, a great example of this may be like the DEX finance vaults. So again, Jake can go more into that, but we are encouraging building on top of the DEX to again provide very deep liquidity for whatever kind of solution that you want to provide. So again, a great example is the vaults. Deck, Jake, you want to go into that?
Yeah, I could talk about the vaults a little bit, but I just was going to mention it. I was going to pop in earlier actually because this is also another thing I'm pretty excited about. Um, it at the bottom of the engineering layer is this liquidity on L1X. It lives on L1X, can be accessed through L1Dex, right? And also kind of tying back in, this consolidated liquidity, shared liquidity, right? We're going to be offering rewards APR on many of the standard L1 L2s, the core liquidity in crypto, and this APR, these rewards, can be accessed shared through L1Dex, right? You can come and provide liquidity and be rewarded for that, right? But we took it a step further, right? Which is crazy to think about, but we're also letting, like AJ mentioned, we're letting people access the liquidity from any source, right? So as a partner, right, you can go ahead and offer to their users the ability to deposit in any of our pools, and we'll actually give the rewards through come through us all the way out through the partner DEX into the user's hands. That partner can also choose to add additional rewards on top, right? So maybe we're not even the best approach. Maybe there's a partner DEX that's offering a specific reward token that you're interested in, and now you can get double rewards, right? And why would we do that, right? Why would the partner DEXs do it, right? Obviously, we want to build liquidity and we want to build our base, but we also have a specific partner DEX reward pool, which partners can, if they're offering the service, they, like I said, by incentivizing their people, they can get more users to deposit their LPs through the partners, and then receive more real yield from what we're doing. And again, this just creates this giant flywheel, not with tokens and DEXs, but of DEXs in an entire crypto sphere.
Right. Great. I mean, when I
cool.
hear you guys speak, there just seems to be no downside. And one of the things I try to pride myself on is finding avenues by which I can find maybe not holes, but or not points of failure, but difficult points to discuss. And you guys make it particularly hard. I've said this to you several times before, AJ, and you're making my life even harder every time you come in.
For sure, brother. Yeah, I mean, we take it very seriously, man. I mean, in all honesty, I mean that we are doing the same sort of due diligence behind the scenes of like, I know Jake and I have had hours of conversations of, all right, how do we break this?
Right.
Like you have to have that worst case scenario. And again, we pride ourselves on that for sure.
And so you should. Go on. Sorry, Jack, after you.
Yeah, I mean, I just nothing's ever just blissful, right? I mean, there's challenges, right? We're not Coinbase, right? We don't have $500 million, $500 million, $500 million, pumping into this.
Right.
We're doing a lot. We're doing a lot of grassroots. There's a whole learning curve that we need to, explain to people how this happens. Assure people that this tunnel is going to work for them, and it's safe, right? So there's always challenges for sure.
We're going to get on to talking about how kind of an everyday investor can get involved in this, and why they should be bullish about holding the token, the way in which you reward the fact that it only has one token. Before we do that, AJ mentioned Dex vaults, and I recall hearing you, Jake, during one of the AMAs that you did, saying that in doing what you did by aggregating 3 farms into one vault, you were able to outperform Beefy, or something like Beefy, but I think it was, you said somewhere between 6 and 8%. Can you kind of explain a little bit about how that works and why that's also bullish for L1Dex?
Yeah, of course. So one of our projects we've been working on for a while now is these really advanced vault system. You guys are all probably familiar with a standard auto compounder, Beefy or Yield Wolf, right? Something like that, right? Where essentially it's an LP and the rewards get compounded back in, over and over again in this cycle. But what we did was we created a method where you can put up to 3 LPs in a single vault, and those all go in at a certain percentage, right? You can choose if I want 10% of this, 50% of this, 30% of this, right? And what happens is as the rewards come out, right, you can have rewards from 3 different exchanges, or 3 different LP pairs, and as they come out, what happens is it's similar to a balancer pool, right? It's always trying to keep the original allocations, right? So if one of the assets in the vault depreciates in price, it's going to direct those rewards to the lower value asset, and vice versa. If once it recovers, the other one goes down, right? And what at the end of the day, simplified version of it, it's just dollar cost averaging for you. So like a basic principle. But yeah, we have found that we have actual math to back up that by doing it this way, versus just being in 3 individual vaults, you can definitely earn, on average it was about 6.5% more than someone who was just in a regular vault.
Right.
And just to further that really quickly, just to further that, what's really cool about bringing this to L1X, right, is I mentioned you can right now you can put 3 different exchanges, 3 different pairs from 3 different exchanges on a chain, right? But imagine you don't want 3. Imagine you only want one pair from one chain, another pair from another chain, another pair from another chain. So bringing it to L1X, you can actually do 3 different pairs from multiple chains, and also driving a ton of volume through L1X, which is super bullish.
Yes, it is. With everything that you guys have going on, how do you taper your own excitement to roll things out? Do you have a set plan? I mean, I know you have a roadmap. I can see what you guys are wanting to release. I mean, this to me would be so exciting to work on that I would want to roll out everything out in one go. How are you guys managing that? And what's the plan in terms of how you roll things out in a targeted way that can provide everyone with the maximum value?
Yeah, no, I love this. So, I mean, again, that is part of our community management approach, and really, it boils down to resources as well. And so, like Jay said earlier, combined, there's at least 30 devs just from our side that will be working on it. And it doesn't even include the additional support that we can always tap into from the L1X Foundation. So really, as crazy as the answer, this answer is, it's really just a matter of how fast we can build it. And obviously, we don't want to throw everything at everybody immediately, and there has to be some, obviously our testing periods and making sure everything is secure and solid and nothing breaks. But the idea is that we're gonna constantly be rolling out additional features. One of the or 2 of them I can mention. One of them is actually hopefully going to be live, like now or again within the next few weeks. Is the ability to use the Dex with an email address. So this is massive for we made a joke the other day. Patrick from Stasis Network, he coined this term, the crypto curious. So the crypto curious that maybe aren't, they don't know how to create a MetaMask wallet or use the L1X wallet. They just want to get on they just want to, 99% of crypto, they think crypto is buying BTC or ETH and holding it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that is a very low barrier of entry. So being able to have an email address opens up massive adoption where we then create the wallet for you behind the scenes. So again, it's always decentralized. We never ever have custody of anybody's funds. And as they want to do more with the ecosystem, they learn that they need to use the L1X wallet or learn how to use their private keys. So this again is a great way to further adoption as we go. And I had a second point, but I don't remember at the moment.
Well, one of the
So
questions I
yeah,
have for you
rollout. Yeah.
immediately in terms of having mass adoption and getting your name out there, and it was something that I was going to bring in a bit later, but I can bring it in now, is one of the features I heard you talk about is via the bank that you are through a wallet going to be able to ping people to let them know about L1Dex. So one of the ways in which you can target people and market to people and let them know how good you are is that route. Is that right?
Yeah, Mad Hatter. So this is Jake's wheelhouse. So I'll let him comment. But yeah, brother, this is revolutionary in terms of marketing too. Yeah, go ahead, Jake. Yeah.
Well, hey, I don't wait. We're not giving away all the secret sauce here.
Yeah,
But I
exactly.
said that, I said there would be a way to message people once they've used a competitor's bridge to notify them that if they would have used L1X bridge, their transaction would have been done and it would have been cheaper.
Right.
But yeah, no, there's
Which
a
is
lot
a
of
huge feature.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking. We're trying to, the technology for crypto marketing has come a long way. AJ and I have both been in the space for quite a long time and have spent way too much money on influencers and bad ROI on poocoin.com, things like that. So we're really taking a more systematic approach and doing some really unique things with what's available these days.
Great.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, we're not gonna tell you how, but we do have that capability, and again, that's been spearheaded behind the scenes by Jake. And real quick, Matt Hatter, I did remember some other things about rollout. We have amazing plans, but the other issue is making sure that the DEX is well established. So one of the things on the roadmap, which again you may get into later, is actually borrow and lending. But
Right.
we really can't tap into the full potential of borrowing and lending until we have the massive liquidity that that needs. So again, we don't want people getting stopped out or liquidated within borrowing and lending. So we have to make sure that we have a base for that. So it is kind of a bridge not only from the development side, but also from the community growth side as well.
Right. Great. Thank you. Yeah, and as I said at the top of this, it really is moving towards being the centralized exchange for DeFi, which is fascinating. When you were speaking a little bit earlier about breaking things and coming from the mindset of how can you break things, one of the questions that I found interesting that's been raised is about your APY optimization. And is there scope perhaps for a protocol to provide the highest APY just to attract L1X capital to then rug, and how do you mitigate against that particular scenario?
Yeah, I can cover that actually. Impossible, because technically the partners don't have any access to the liquidity. They're just being tabulated. The funds going through their DEX are actually going through their DEX through L1Dex and then actually living on L1X blockchain, which we have control over. The only advantage of boosting rewards for higher APR would be so that exchange could get a larger percentage of the partner DEX rewards pool. So, I mean, I guess there's always a chance that the reward token could rug, but at the very worst case scenario, the original the original LP would be safe. The L1X rewards that you're getting are safe, and surely they would not be in the system for too long.
Right. Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
totally. And that happens in real time. So even if a partner chain our partner Dex rather, pulled liquidity, then we just wouldn't route, through them. Like it's all in real time. So yeah, I mean that's a big difference. And furthermore, we are going to be selective again on partner dexes that we use. Obviously, the idea is to further adoption, and we are looking at small, medium, and large dexes. But they have to have at least some sort of track record as well. I mean, that's not foolproof. That does help mitigate for sure.
Thank you. We spoke a little bit about the education. You said you're going to roll out educational videos. Some people have questioned whether or not there are going to be arbitrage opportunities here with you guys, and whether or not that's something that you've thought about. Do you think it will balance itself out eventually, or will those opportunities always be around? And are you going to create videos around all of these little intricate details that come along with what it is that you're building? And how might that look in the future for anybody that might listen to a conversation like this or any of the other conversations you had, their brains go a bit mushy because it's so much information, but they still want to learn. They have an appetite to really find out how they can best benefit through L1X.
Yeah, there's a couple questions in there, I guess. Arbitrage is actually more difficult than you think for balancer pools, especially for the ones that we're putting together. Mm-hmm. Because it's not, most arbitrage happens between, ETH USDC on one exchange and ETH USDC on another exchange. It's just counting the difference between them. Whereas actually there's a mechanism that always keeps the ETH, just the ETH, because it's paired with a number of other assets. ETH always just stays ETH, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not quite what you think, but again, that we do definitely have mechanisms in place. With oracles to assure that the user is getting the best price at all times, right? So that's obviously our primary focus.
Yeah, and in terms of other education, I mean, we really try to stay away from financial advice or telling people what to do. I think any potential arbitrage opportunity that kind of gets into some gray area, but we will be just essentially showcasing how the DEX functions. I think that is what the education will be a lot more on from our side. Again, and explaining all the features, and eventually when we have stop losses and other tools like that, we can definitely talk about that. But as far as like actual strategies, that's something we probably will stay away from.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'll say this as well though real quick. On those features, one of the features that'll be available day one, that kind of runs in the background, is a kind of a unique MEV bot protection system, right? So, mm-hmm. We'll have bots that control price and make sure that everything's stable, but it'll be a lot more difficult for outsiders to come and try to manipulate that price, which is ultimately good for the end user again.
Yes, it is. Gasless trading. It's one of those things that has come up. I've heard you guys answer this several times, and it seemed to confuse a couple of people within our Discord when we were discussing this over the last couple of days. Can you explain what it is you mean by gasless trading and how that works for people that are going to be using L1X?
Yeah.
L1Dex, sorry.
Yeah, without getting too technical, I'll tell you, if any of the techies out there are interested, you can look up. There's a new ERC 4337, I believe. It's a new standard, token standard. It's essentially like an abstraction layer that allows for signatures of wallet signatures to be handled by a contract, and on a dumbed down version of it is essentially just that we're covering the gas for you, and you pay us back with with part of the trade, right? So if you're on BNB, or let's just say someone sends you USDC on BNB, right? But you don't have BNB, you don't have AVAX, but you want AVAX on AVAX. You just put in your USDC, facilitate that trade. It goes cross chain, and we just take the few cents out of that transaction to pay back the relayer for the previous funds used.
Right, great, thank you. All right, so talk to me about the reward token, the L1X token. Talk to me about why it is that you went the route that you did with that particular token. And I've heard you guys mention several times now that it's going to be forced into enormous buy pressure. How does that work? How are you mitigating against sell pressure for the most part?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah,
Yeah.
or go ahead, Jake. Yeah, that's more of a technical.
No.
So go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I guess the original idea behind it was, and both of AJ and myself being in the space for such a long time, we've seen just the damages that high inflation can do to not only a project but a whole ecosystem, and we really didn't want that to be part of what this we really believe in the tech itself, right? We believe that it doesn't we don't have to have these crazy 1,000% APRs. We don't want people buying buying a DEX token that's going to be worthless in a year. Whereas the L1X token has tons of use case. It's a layer one, and people it'll appreciate in value, which will also boost APRs, right? So it comes in this type of flywheel. Essentially, we have a substantial runway for an indefinite period of time to get us initial liquidity. But again, because we believe in the tech so much, we know that we're going to be making revenue either way, right? So with that real yield, the revenue coming in, we're just always going to be buying back L1X, which obviously creates the buy pressure,
Right.
and then kind of dishing that back out to users for APR.
Great, thank you. AJ, I'm going to pick on you a little bit. I have a couple of questions for you that might be a little tougher, but I think they're relevant, and I'm fascinated to hear your answer.
Absolutely, brother.
Some of the, you guys you've done fantastic with EMP. There's no doubt about it in terms of how long it's been around for. It's still paying out the position you have within the space. But it's no secret, of course, that EMP right now is in the position it should be in. So people might look at that as that background and where it is right now. They might be a bit disappointed that it feels like you could be overstretching yourself. And then when we look at Spark Swap, for example, there are going to be people, and I know it's brand new, and always people complain when a token price comes down a little bit. And I've already seen you, rightly so, kind of berate someone for not doing their homework and learning how to play the system properly so that the token price doesn't start to dip. But how are you going to kind of, or what is your pushback to anybody that might comment on those things negatively in relation to this and say, well, is the track record of that at current state not just going to kind of filter into
I
this?
love this, brother. So again, we pride ourselves on being fully transparent. There's never a question that I won't answer, and so I think that the short answer is we're playing chess, not checkers, and there is a much bigger plan in the grand scheme of things, than launching projects that may be considered, a distraction or spreading ourselves too thin. We've had a lot of requests for integration of Pulse through L1X. And so by setting up SparkSwap most recently, I mean, that is essentially building a potential partner DEX that can then provide liquidity for L1X when it becomes interoperable with PLS. So again, that's one major example of the long-term vision that we have that a lot of people just have no idea about, when they try to look at the short-term goal or mindset. And yeah, I mean, we definitely are busy, and we have a lot going on, but we also have the team and the community and the resources to manage that. And so and with EMP as well. I mean, again, the farms are still paying. I know that everything is down. Obviously, we were impacted by the bear market that we all went through. But we're building a much more sustainable model. Again, taking note from people like Jake and Dex Finance and moving towards real yield models, where again it takes away all the unnecessary inflation. It takes away all the potential prisoner's dilemma where you're reliant on other users for the success of the protocol, we've learned a ton in the last 2 years, and all of that will be applied to everything that we do. And I guess the one thing that frustrates me the most, which I'm sure all project owners can attest to, and Jake as well, is that I think a lot of people in crypto just have this the short-term mindset where when something isn't going, up and to the right forever, they get they get
Right.
really upset, or they just don't see the overall goal of long-term investment. So and that's part of our goal, is to help educate the DeFi space, and again, to my point or your point, at the very beginning of the AMA, it's why you invest in teams, not necessarily projects. So yeah.
You took it right out of my mouth. I was
I love
going
it,
to
brother.
quote
Yes.
that
Yeah.
as you finished. Yes, exactly. I was going to say at the top of this, we said you invest in teams, not protocols. And I guess you guys must be. You said you're playing, chess, not checkers. You must be chomping at the bit to be able to demonstrate how the L1Dex is going to be able to positively benefit Dex vaults, EMP, as you already mentioned, Spark Swap, etc.
Sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's, it helps that there's, we both have a lot on the table, and we pride ourselves on that. There's a lot of revenue streams coming in, a lot of things coming back, but you need to you have to move away from inflation to get to real yields to really make it to the next level. And yeah, I know my community. In fact, honestly, it's funny, when we moved to real yield model, we did actually lose a good chunk of our investors. Like AJ mentioned, it's people get frustrated. They're not making 100%. Like APRs, and and that's fine. We're okay with that. It's not it's not for everybody. But yeah, we're like, my whole community is just super excited about the possibilities of not just the extra revenue, but what we can do between the tech that we already have and what we can do now
Yeah,
with
no doubt. And
L1X.
one more
Right.
point, sorry, Matt Hatter. I know we even addressed
Please
this
do. Yeah.
in another AMA. Because we've decided not to use a DEX token, and everything is related to L1X. Now, people were like, man, how do we essentially support or earn by getting, quote unquote equity in the DEX? Well, again, that is where EMP and DEX Finance come into play. Obviously, we have a portion of fees that will go to our individual protocols, and so you're essentially benefiting monetarily from the DEX by proxy with our individual projects. So this is really powerful for the longevity of what I call the mothership of EMP or DEX Finance. Yeah.
Right. Great. Thank you. It's always good when community questions starts to kind of become a little bit quiet, because it means everything that you guys delivering is super interesting, and people don't have any questions surrounding it. One of the things I haven't asked, we haven't touched upon, I don't believe, is the speed by which the transactions can go through and how much they're going to cost. Because I think people are going to kind of lose their minds a little bit if they haven't already checked the cost of the transactions when they hear how little it'll cost.
Yeah, for sure. So, oh, sorry, Jake. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Same time. Yeah, blockchain transactions on L1X are actually under 1 cent, which means all you ETH bros out there can now move your assets around. And instead of paying 2.50, you can pay 1 cent to get your ETH now.
Right.
It's pretty mind blowing. Obviously there'll be some swap fees and stuff, but yeah, but again, because it all happens in an AMM, the transaction time is like a normal transaction. It just it just goes through the AMM and it's done, right? So the 5, 10, 20-minute wait times sometimes on things like Stargate, and day and a half wait times on Synapse are like just a thing of the past. This happens like all under a minute. Gas fees under a penny, with very marginal
totally.
price impact.
And yeah, to
Right.
clarify
Great.
too,
And
Matt Hatter, I mean, you if you are doing cross chain logic transfer or interacting with other smart contracts, you still have to pay the gas fees on whatever destination chain. But like Jake was saying, as long as you're on the home base of L1X or you're using the L1X wallet, you could severely decrease your loss of fees, especially with the higher fees of ETH and everything else. So yeah, it's important. Yep, absolutely.
Right. And one of the other features, I suppose, that I've heard you guys mention this, but anybody that wants to, or a DEX that wants to come on and have swap fees that they might be able to charge, they can actually then increase the amount that they charge and still come underneath what it might cost, especially when you're dealing with something like ETH, right?
Yeah, more so than that. I mean, there's adjustable fee structure. The SDK, you can basically set your own fees, and yeah, there's just such a huge margin, especially when you're talking about cross chain, because each service is a little bit different, and it depends on which tokens are going where. But yeah, there's even if you set your own fee on top, it's remarkably cheaper, which actually allows like anybody to become a partner, right? It's not just
Right.
these big dexes. If you have just a small project with like a couple 100,000 in liquidity on one chain, you can now become a cross chain protocol, offering a whole plethora of services.
Right. Can you guys hear me still? Yes, you can. Okay. Sorry, for a second there, I thought my mic wasn't working. Thank you. I'm aware that I've now had you guys for quite a bit of time, so I'm going to start to wind down. First question is, for the everyday investor, how can they get involved? Where should they be going to get involved? Where can they get all the information to get in, buy the token, etc.?
This is where LA and I have been really pounding the pavement. We're actually running a Twitter and DBank competition as we speak. So we're giving away $100 on each platform, so $200 total. Please make sure that you guys look at that. And obviously our public sale. So we were here at the Pillars a few months ago with the private sale. Again, we had some great response with that. We as the DEX are facilitating the pre-sales through L1X, and it is the only option you have without KYCing. So again, because L1X as a foundation is doing everything above board, if you want to invest directly with L1X, you have to KYC, and some countries are excluded. However, when you go through our exchange pre-sale, or public sale now, we are the ones that KYC with L1X. We act as the intermediary, and then we distribute the token. So again, everything is still above board. As of right now, we have the public sale going on. It's at 50 cents. And there's some great perks as well, depending on how much you're able to contribute. So if you contribute $1,000 or more, you get access to some premium features in the L1X wallet. 5,000 or more, or for every 5,000 above, you get what is called an event listener node, and those nodes will help validate transactions in terms of logic. Again, that's how those nodes are how the chain is able to communicate with other chains. And then the big boy, the 25,000 full validator node, that node is used to validate transactions on L1X. So again, these are actual nodes that are validating the network, and there's I think 100 million L1X tokens over 5 years that go to node operators. So it could be very, very lucrative as well. But yeah, we would love to, and that's a great way to get involved and learn. And we'll drop a little alpha. We did mention this in only a few other AMAs. We are going to be rolling out an airdrop. So if you're not able to participate in any of the pre-sales, you could potentially earn some L1X to still interact with the chain and see how everything works. So we'll have more info on that as it gets closer.
Exciting, thank you. I've also just dropped in the L1Dex Discord link into the community questions. We're going to be running the giveaway soon, so anybody that wants to be eligible has to jump in there. That's one of the criteria to be eligible. So yeah, please do jump in, have a look around, ask questions. AJ, I forgot to ask before we finish up, what are you most excited about with this? Is there anything in particular that's hidden away that people don't ask you that you
Yeah, so
really
again,
get giddy
I
about?
second what Jake said about the concentrated liquidity. But for me, I just get excited for, the burden that this will remove. I mean, for me, I have 30,000 transactions on my MetaMask. I'm doing tons and tons of volume a day as a DeFi user, even on top of running, all of our projects. But to me, the light bulb moment or the aha moment is just how incredibly needed this sort of technology is. And I've lost thousands of dollars to bridges that just simply don't show up. And then the tech support is not there; they don't care. So to be able to eliminate all of that potential waste, in crypto, that's what I get really excited about. And I really do feel like we're going to be able to achieve a ton of market share just because of that alone. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you get even a fraction of the volume that some of these large dexes do get, then you guys are going to be doing extraordinarily well.
No joke. I lost 5,000 on a bridge like last week. You can't make that up.
Oh, oh no, that hurts.
Bad exchange rates.
Right. That must be infuriating, but at the same time, I suppose the bittersweet is that you know that you're creating something that, if all goes as planned, is going to mitigate a lot of that, which must be, kind of
Absolutely.
exciting for you.
100%.
Gentlemen,
Totally.
it's been a pleasure. I apologize if it felt maybe that I was hopping around from thing to thing, but there's so much information in this that, I mean, I could go on for another couple of hours with you guys. Is there anything pressing I haven't asked? Are there any core points that you wanted me to cover that I didn't?
Yeah, no, from my side, I mean, again, Mad Hatter, I don't say this, at all to stroke your ego, but you are literally one of the best anime hosts in all of crypto, and we love the pillars for that reason, and your incredible community. We've had 166 participants for over an hour now. It really means a lot. And again, man, I also appreciate that you do your research, you do your due diligence, and you're not afraid to ask some potentially difficult questions. So it's always a pleasure. Every time I get on these AMAs, I'm reminded why the pillars are so amazing in this space. And yeah, man, I think we covered everything from our perspective. Obviously, please make sure that you join all the socials. There's a ton of info that we again, just even in last hour, we gave out a lot of info, but there's still so much more. And it's really important to us that we communicate well and teach people about how this is gonna go. So the socials are the best way to do that. We have amazing mods. And if you had any specific questions about L1X itself, because remember we are not part of the team. We are a separate entity. So if you had any questions directly about L1X, it's probably also great to join their Discord as well. Their mods are fantastic. So yeah, again, Jake, anything else?
I mean, I think you covered it all, man. Matt Hatter, fantastic job. That was like a fast money round on Family Feud. Just spitting them out. I love it.
Thank you very much,
Totally.
gentlemen. AJ, thank you so much for those kind words. It's very humbling. And I'm going to echo something that we've said a couple of times now already, and it's invest in teams, not protocols. And one of the things that I will say is that I know that these two gentlemen are particularly smart. Have a look at their backstories. Go and take a little time out of your day to research, Dex Vault and EMP Money, because you're going to be pretty surprised with what you learn in terms of who these guys are and what they've achieved. And for that reason, I am particularly excited to see what L1Dex does, because you guys deliver on what you say you're going to deliver on. You're always very communicative, and I love that you're saying you're playing chess and not checkers, and I think a lot of people could and would do very well to kind of take a step back from any of the other things that they might be concerned about that are dipping or not quite in the position they should be, and just look at the overall bigger picture. So yeah, from my point of view, I think there's massive potential for incredibly exciting things here.
Cheers,
Thank
brother.
you very much
Absolutely.
for having us, man.
All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much. Thank you very much to everybody that came to listen. I hope you've jumped into the Discord. I look forward to speaking to you guys in a couple of months again, hopefully when you're fully launching. Everything's up and running, and we can see how it's all going.
That'd be
Yes,
great.
sir. We'll plan it now, brother. Absolutely. So, and I will be hanging out in the general chat as well for the next few minutes if anybody has last minute questions.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. You guys take care.
Cheers.